First of all, thank you for everyone who spoke tonight. You all are doing the heavy lifting for all of us, and it's appreciated. What Kurt said is true. Mental illness does affect all class of people. But the point here tonight that I take away from this is that those at the lower economic level cannot afford the services. And that is where we have a role in government. I do believe government exists to serve the public, the common good. And that is a role of government to figure out a way that we can keep people safe, sound, and improve their lives. Now, several points were made tonight that just hit home with me. Dr. Barnett talking about the schools. Several people talking about the police officers driving ambulances or people back and forth to hospitals. That again shows how this issue transfers to all of us. When we have cuts at the level that we had under the Republicans on Medicaid, it hurt everybody. It hurt our schools. Our schools become the shock absorbers of all of society when that happens. It hurts police force when they're to be out protecting our communities and they're driving people back and forth to mental hospitals. These are just the overflow effects of these cuts. We talked about we talked about the services, youth services, and the good program that we in Missouri have in youth services. That was started by Mel Carnahan. That was headed by Mark Stewart, who worked under Mel Carnahan, and we are still reaping the benefits of that program. That is one thing that has not been destroyed. So, several people tonight, the first doctor said, Missouri can be a better state. Yes, we can. The other person said, the second doctor, Dr. Gedden, said, we can do better. Yes, we can. I want to do better, and I think we can do better. Thank you.
I'm Chris Kelly. Most of you know that I spent 6 years on the bench. And I saw many, many mentally ill people in the court environment. A lot of you also know that I was on every single mental health conference committee for 10 years. You eloquently and accurately diagnosed a societal illness tonight. What you did not do is prescribe a course of treatment. And that's the issue. Nobody's going to pay any attention to you about the course of treatment because you don't have any power. And you don't exercise power. It is absolute nonsense to suggest that the health care cuts were necessary. The health care cuts were made because people with power wanted the money and got the money. I'll give you one example. There was an economic development grant given to one man by the current legislature. They gave him a $95 million tax credit. Now I'm thinking, from my time in the budget, that for $95 million, we can do a bunch of mental health. That is a choice that the legislature and the governor of this state made. It was convenient that the guy was his lobbyist was the governor's brother. Same with the ethanol. Ethanol was more important than you guys, because why? Because they had power and money. And I believe that you have got to quit diagnosing the problem and start prescribing the solution. And you don't have to agree with my perception of how mental health ought to work, or the budget ought to work, but you ought to pick somebody and be serious about electing them or beating them. For you to say, oh, we have a problem, sob, sob, doesn't cut it. There are too many doctors and nurses and other health care providers who expect legislators to do the right thing. Do you know what? The steam fitters and the corn growers and the rich developers in St. Louis do not expect the legislature to do the right thing. They expect, because they have 100 years of experience, that the legislature will yield to power. And it will yield to your power when you exercise it. To believe the mythology that the health care cuts were necessary is to live in a delusional world. And it is the people who voted for that chose rich developers over sick children. That's one choice you can make. I'm going to tell a story. She remembers the story. When I was first budget chairman and Governor Ashcroft was governor, we didn't have enough money. The governor's solution was to cut mental health. Now, I like tourism and I like arts, but I think that mental health is a fundamental responsibility of government, and tourism and the arts, important as they are not fundamental. They're not first principles. I said, as an intellectual exercise, let's cut all of tourism and all of mental health, remember? And fund all of tourism and all of the arts and fund mental health. Well, I promptly got my head kicked in because the Republicans took care of tourism and the Democrats took care of the arts, and bingo, out went mental health. And the people in Marshall Rehabilitation Center who were lying there incontinent without AIDS were still incontinent without AIDS, except they had even fewer AIDS because the arts and tourism got their ashes hauled. You got to begin to be as tough as the artsies and the touristies and the highway guys, and then we'll be able to deal with this problem.